Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Chance, and I will be continuing my top 100 board game series. And on today's video, it's going to be number 60 to 51, so we're in that final of the bottom half here before we break into that top 50. So this is pretty exciting, and on the video for today, I have a few small box games that are making some big appearances. So with that being said, let's just dive right into this and kick things off with my number 60. And what better way to continue this list from my number 61 being Clank deck builder and moving into another deck builder. This is going to be Tyrants of the Underdark. So Tyrants of the Underdark is, I call it Dominion with area control. That is, I think, an apt description of this game. You're going to have some of the variety that you get with Dominion with those decks that you're going to put out in the market or into that. It has a little bit of a deck builder where you get to select the things you want to play with for the game. So you get a little bit of variation on what you can kind of build your deck around based on what you kind of initialize that starting market deck with. So I really enjoy that aspect, and it has kind of this very similar feeling to Dominion. It has the same thing you're kind of going for. Am I going to be buying cards? Am I going to be going for, well, in this one, attack cards or whatever? But I really like the combination of that Dominion style deck building with the area control board. I've talked about this in the last video with Clank, where for me, I don't find that pure deck building itself is like a driving factor to get me back to a game. Like, once again with Dominion being, you know, the one that started it all. It's just one of those games where I enjoy it, but it doesn't really have enough that I really want to come back to. Whereas like Clank, adding in that player board or the central board where you're moving that meeple around, that adds in enough of a decision space for me to really engage with that system. And same thing here with Tyrants of the Underdark, but I like it a bit more because it is an area control, so it feels a little more interactive than something like Clank. So that's why it's one space above Clank here. And I just love how you have those, you're placing out those troops, you're trying to get your troops out, you're trying to get next to other players to try to eliminate them, to prevent them from having control of certain areas on the map. You're trying to gain control, to gain these special tokens for extra purchasing power and stuff. Just a really nice blending of the mechanics. I am excited to kind of continue revisiting Tyrants of the Underdark. I've played it a couple times now, and it is a game that I could definitely see going up my list as we play it more. Yeah, so that is just, if you like deck building, if you like area control, I think this one is worthwhile checking out. All right, so that's going to do it for my number 60. Let's move straight into number 59, and I have this one down at my feet here. This is going to be another area control game, and it is Brian Boru. So Brian Boru, oh man, we have I think this is my third Pure Sylvester game on my top 100 list already, and yeah, once again, Pure Sylvester does it again, makes a absolutely brilliant game, just another just brain crunchy, whatever, thinky game that he has here. So it's kind of a trick-taking area control game, except it doesn't have like the strict rules of trick-taking. So there's going to be a card draft in the beginning, actually a little bit like Inish. So you have these cards that you're going to draft. They all have unique numbers, so you can never tie on a trick or anything like that. But they all also have a certain color. The distribution cards is crazy. Like the colors are distributed. Like there's a couple yellows in the low end, there's a couple yellows in the mid, a couple yellows in the high, and then there's a couple blue cards in the low, a couple blue cards in the mid. I don't know. So it has an interesting card distribution that this does make the game a little bit harder to teach, because I feel like I don't always care about card distribution on my first plays of a game. It's something that I don't like teaching. I'm just like, you know, you'll just figure it out as you go or whatever. But with Brian Boru, it's kind of critical that people understand kind of how these cards play out. So I like to lay these cards out and be like, hey, this is the distribution in the deck, so you guys can have a kind of general idea of what we're dealing with here, because it is going to be a trick-taking game where you're going to get something if you win, but you're also going to get something if you lose. So planning when you win and lose in this game is going to be kind of that critical decision, because you are going for that area majority. So whenever you win let's call it the trick. I don't like calling it a trick because it's kind of a trick, right? It's kind of like talking about arcs. Arcs is like, it's kind of a trick. So this one has the trick taker backbone to it. But yeah, so whoever wins the trick is usually going to be able to take control of the city that they're competing over. So basically the lead player chooses a city, they're going to place out a card to compete for that city, and then whoever wins it puts out their control token. But the more interesting stuff happens with the players that lose the trick, because you can do things like boost your thing on this marriage pillage track, or boost your influence on the Viking track or the repelling Vikings, or boost your influence on the monastery track. And all these things are going to, at the end of the trick-taking round, you're basically going to trigger these other tracks, which are going to influence that area majority on the board a bit, maybe allow you to take control of another city. And the other things with these cards are the fact that, like those higher numbered cards, you're more likely to win the tricks, but the problem is that they are a little more costly to take control of those talents. So a lot of times losing with a higher number card can actually be more valuable, because the higher numbers also have a better, they tend to have a better lose ability on them. So you get to move up those tracks more or whatever, or you get more money when you lose with those cards. But once again, they're the easier cards to win with. So they have a really good trade-off in the game of, like, when do you use that high card to lose, when do you use that high card to win, when do you want to take control of the game and be that lead player and choose the talents that you're competing over. Yeah, so just a fantastic blend of this card draft and that area control portion. And also I love the card draft because you can kind of like screw over a player, like you become the enemy of your neighbor. You can just be like, you know what, I'm not going to give you any red cards. No red cards for you, so I'm gonna take all those and keep them for myself. So this is one that it hasn't hit for everyone I've introduced it to. I don't think everyone's going to love this style of game. Once again, Pierre Sylvester, I feel like his games are a little crunchy, little brain burner, so not everyone enjoys that style of play, but I am enthralled by it. I love it. I want to get it back to the table more. So that is my number 59, Brian Boru. All right, let's move on to my number 58, and this is going to be a much older one, Cosmic Encounter. And I have down here, it's the 42nd Anniversary Edition. That's the one I played. I think I've played Cosmic Encounter a few times now, and it is always a joy to play. This is a weird game where, you're going to have these crazy cards in your hand. You have your own little alien ability, which you start out, your alien race can be face down until you use the ability, I think, and then essentially once you use your ability, you're going to reveal it. And those abilities they're all game breaking in some way, so it adds in just a lot of chaos into the game, and just crazy stuff happens. And that's kind of how I experience Cosmic Encounter. It is a crazy wild game with some negotiation in there, so if you don't like negotiation, it might be a turnoff. But I feel like this one it lands for me. I want to play it more. I feel like this one, if I played it more, it will probably move up my list even more. But there's a couple things that I love about this game. One, it's a take that game, but you don't have a choice on your take that. Essentially, at the beginning of your turn, you're going to draw a card from the deck, and it's going to tell you who you are attacking. So I kind of love that aspect, because it takes away that pain of being like, oh, you know what, you're kind of doing worse than everyone, so I don't want to attack you, and you're doing the best. So you know what, just because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, I'm going to go after the person that looks like they're in the lead right now. But then the person in the lead is going to be like, oh, well, I'm not actually in the lead. They're actually doing way better than me. Why are you attacking me? So it takes away all of that, and it just says, draw this card from the deck, and you're now attacking the red player. There you go. So now you choose one of their planets. You're going to commit some units to that by placing out your tokens. Basically, you're trying to get a certain number of colonies out to win the game, and then other players can join you. That you can be like, hey guys, you want to help me? Or the defender can ask other players, like, hey, this guy's picking on me. Like, you guys want to come and help protect my planet or whatever? And then essentially that's whoever wins. Like, if you go and help someone out, you definitely want to help people out, because that allows you to colonize planets and helps you get to that victory condition faster. Then there's some just fun negotiation stuff that can happen in this, because players can kind of screw each other over. I've had a situation where essentially I think we were playing at 5 players, and all 4 players could have won the game against me. Like, there can be multiple winners, and they all could have just joined in and been like, we're going to wipe you out. And there was one player that's like, no, I don't think that's fair. So you know what? I'm going to go and help with the defense. And that stopped these other 3 players from getting that victory condition. And we moved around. I think we had a couple more turns. And that one player, he was up for the win. And he's like, you know what? I helped you out. Yeah, you can join in. And you can come in. And I basically tagged along for my victory in that game. It wasn't fair. I don't know. But it was fun and chaotic. And it's a joy to play. Like, I find that chaos, that negotiation, just the craziness that can happen to be, it's just like one of those games where it's dynamic and interesting and engaging for me. But once again, if you're the person that wants to be into that more Euro style game, more heads down, you don't want to deal with that chaos, you want to be able to kind of be in control of your own destiny, Cosmic Encounter is probably not for you. Okay, so that's it for my number 58. So we are now moving on, and we got a few small box games coming up in a row here. This is number 57, and that's going to be That's Not a Hat. absolutely adore this game. This is just I I got it, and I wasn't really. I read the rules. I was like, I don't know if this is a game. I don't know what's here. Then finally played it, and was like, holy crap, this is so good. The way this one works is that you're going to deal out these cards to each player, and the cards have these very simple images on them, like they're just little sketch drawings of like a toaster or a compass or something. So just very simple drawings. And on your turn, basically, you're going to show people your drawing. You're going to be like, hey, this is a bicycle. And then you're going to flip it face down, and the card is going to tell you which direction you're going to pass it. You're going to be like, here, I gift you a bicycle. Then the other player is going to either say, no, that's not a bicycle, or they're going to say, oh, thank you for that bicycle. And they're going to add it into their queue, and then they have their own card that they're going to show everyone, and then they're going to flip face down, and they're going to pass. So in the beginning of the game, most people are like, oh yeah, thank you for giving me that thing, right? But as the game goes on, you're trying to remember where those cards are at, and these cards can go in opposite directions. Basically, like you have one card passing right, you'll have another card that comes back to the left or whatever. So they can kind of start switching up and kind of going around the table in opposite directions, and you're trying to keep track of it. So you get to that third time that bicycle is passed, it's like, this is a bicycle. And now all of a sudden the player's like, wait, I thought the bicycle was over there. I don't know if that's a bicycle. And yeah, so this is where I've just seen people's brains just like melt during That's Not a Hat, because it seems like it should be so easy. Like they're at 4 players, there's going to be, I don't know, 5 cards on the table. And it's like, oh, I can remember 5 things. But once someone passes you a card, you're like, okay, great, thank you for that card. And then you go to pass this card that's face down in front of you that you're not allowed to look at, and you're like, crap, what was that? What did I have right here? Was this a pencil? Was this a toaster? Ah, shoot. And then you're just taking a guess. You're like, I passed you a bicycle. And the person's like, you just got the bicycle. That's not a bicycle. So it goes away. And yep, and then that person gets a negative point. Basically, first person at 3 minus points loses the game. Once someone gets the first negative point, the game tends to be over pretty rapidly because everyone has forgotten everything at that point, and it's just chaos once that first negative point comes out. But it is one that, yeah, it's so much fun. I love trying to do that memory element. I love the fact that the game turns into a bluffing game very fast. Like it just turned, like you're like, oh, I can remember these things, and then you forget everything, and then everything's just about bluffing. You're trying to remember words that you've heard, and you're just like, I pass you this card and I think it's this word. Yep, good luck. So I find this one to be a joy. I have some friends that aren't as enamored with it because of that memory element. It's kind of like they only want to play it once, and then they're like, my brain is fried, I don't want to play this again now. Whereas I could play this like probably 4 or 5 times back to back and just have a blast with That's Not a Hat. All right, so that's going to do it for my number 57. Now let's move on to my number 56, which is right next to That's Not a Hat, and that will be Trio. So Trio is it's kind of like my favorite. This is one of my favorite filler games. One of my favorite high player count filler games. It plays 3 to 6 players, and it's just fantastic. It's another little memory game, but a little easier, a little lighter than That's Not a Hat. So I feel like this one hits with more groups than That's Not a Hat. Also easier to teach. I find that there's something about That's Not a Hat that can be like the sequencing and the cue that people get with their gifts or whatever. Like something breaks in people's brains during that game. But Trio, much easier to explain. Basically, you're going to have a hand of cards. You're going to order them in ascending order or whatever in your hand, and you cannot access like the middle. You can only access the edges. And on your turn, you're just going to basically try to find 3 cards. Essentially, you have to find a pair. If you find a pair, you get to take a third guess. So you can be like, John, show me your lowest card. He'll put down a card. It'll be like a 2 or whatever. You're like, oh, okay. Now you got to find the other 2. And you can be like, Josh, show me your lowest card. And he puts down a 2. And it's like, oh, okay, I found 2 2s. So that means your turn gets to continue. If you didn't find a 2 there, maybe Josh threw a 1 down, and it's like, okay, turn's over. Everyone takes their cards back to their hands, moves on. But if you found that second 2, you get to take a third one. And then maybe you have the 2, and you're like, I put down the 2. But if your 2 is blocked by a 1, you can't put down that 2. So yeah, it's a fun game where you're just trying to find these trios, and each trio you get is a point. Basically, you're trying to get 3 trios to win in the basic game. There is a spicy version, which changes up kind of what sets you're trying to collect, and I like playing the spicy version the most, but usually I introduce the game with just the intro version, then I move to the spicy version after that. But the other part is that there's going to be the leftover cards are going to be in the center of the table face down, so on your turn you can actually flip one of those cards face up to reveal it and see if, and once again, it's just like asking someone for their lowest or highest card from their hand. And if you manage to find a pair, you get to take a third action and try to find that trio. But and then at the end of your turn, if you did not find a trio though, you're gonna flip those cards face down, and then you're gonna basically people are trying to remember like what is in other people's hands, what's in that center, what's been revealed, and it's just it is a very smooth, very clean game that I just find it's always enjoyable. I like just having this one out with me. Like if I'm going out to a brewery or something, this one is just always I always have a good time playing trio. Okay, let's move on to my number 55, and 55 is this tiny little box next to me. This is Regicide. Now, Regicide is a deck of cards. You don't need to buy Regicide for this, but I do like the art on these cards. I do like the style of this one. You could actually just have a deck of cards, download the rules, call it good, and play Regicide. And this is phenomenal. I would say this was higher on my list in the past, but it's mostly because I have played so much Regicide that it's kind of fallen down a little bit. This is my it was my go-to like lunch game for a little while. I would say I've played it. I had to play this hundreds of times now. Where, yeah, I played it mostly at 2 players. I played it a couple times at 3. I don't think I've ever played it at 4, but I wouldn't have, once again, this is one of those games I would not have any issue with. This is a co-op game where you are essentially, you separate out the face cards from the number cards. The number cards are basically your army that you're going to be working with, and you're trying to take out the royals in this game. So you're going to shuffle up the jacks, queens, and kings and stack those on top of each other, reveal the top one. The jack basically has 20 health and is going to do 10 damage to you. Then as a team, you're basically trying to take out each one of those royals. So you're going to play a card, and the cool thing is that each suit has its own power. So like the clubs deal double damage. The spades allow you to block some of the damage. So basically when you take damage, you're going to discard cards to mitigate that damage. But the spades can block some of that damage at the end of your turn. The hearts heal, which allows you to take cards from the discard and put them back into the deck, because essentially you're going to be cycling through that deck and you're going to have to heal to be able to keep getting your army back into play. Then diamonds, the most important card in the game, is going to allow you to draw cards back to your hand, because essentially if someone has no cards in their hand when it's their turn to play, game over. So it is a bit of a hand management game where you're trying to manage between the players you're looking at. You're saying, oh, you only have 1 card, you have 2 cards, I guess we can survive 1 more round, but maybe I'll play a diamond now to kind of refresh everyone's hand and keep us alive for a little bit. Now the other part of this is that the suit of the royal that is face up, they cancel the power of the cards that you're playing. So this is so bad, because when that diamond comes up, it's like no one can draw cards. So basically you're doing a lot of things where you're like, okay, we're close to killing this royal, we need to make sure we can draw up our cards, because if we have that diamond flip face up, we are screwed. So it has a really nice hand management system, just a really fun co-op system. It's very smooth to play, easy to teach, and just comes in a tiny package. I think this is a brilliant game. This is 100% worth picking up. I think it costs like $15 or something on most like board game stores online or something. So just absolutely fantastic if you want a co-op game to play. I am currently playing Regicide Legacy, so I'm excited to give my thoughts on that in the near future. Okay, that's going to do it for Regicide. Let's move on to my number 54. And this is going to be Feed the Kraken. So this is one of the few social deduction games on my list, and because I'm not generally a huge fan of a lot of social deduction games, but Feed the Kraken, oh, I really enjoy Feed the Kraken. So in Feed the Kraken, basically you have a ship and you have a little hex board out in front of you. That hex board is the ocean, and basically you have like the pirates and the sailors, and they are trying to get to their respective ports. So the pirates are the bad guys, and they're trying to capture the ship, take it to their pirate cove or whatever. The sailors are the good guys. They're just trying to sail home and make it back to their mainland or whatever. And then you also have one special character, which is the cultist. Now the cultist is interesting because they are trying to either sail directly down the center and make it to their cult cave or something, or the cultist wants to be sacrificed to the Kraken. They want to be thrown overboard because the Kraken's their god or something. And over the course of the game, the cultists, there are some events that can happen where the cultists can convert some of the other players and bring them into the fold and try to get them on their side of getting the cultist sacrificed to the Kraken. And the way this plays out is just awesome. The theme is amazing because everyone gets these little guns. You can use those guns to mutiny, because essentially at the start of the game, you're going to have one person as the captain. They assign a navigator and a lieutenant, and then all 3 of those players are going to choose like a destination, or no, 2 of the players, I think it's the lieutenant and the captain, they're going to choose one card from two that they draw, and those cards are gonna have like the direction the boat goes. So it's gonna be either yellow, which is straight, or blue, which is go to the right, or red, go to the left. And basically they're gonna draw two, so they have a bit of a random odds on what they're gonna get. They're gonna throw it in this box. They're gonna mix those up, give that to the navigator. Then the navigator is gonna keep one of those that are left from the captain, lieutenant. Sorry, that's a messy explanation, but essentially it's just this thing where those two players are trying to hide information. Then the navigator is making that final choice, and it's just trying to give people misdirection. So essentially you're going to be like, oh, we move towards the pirates or whatever this turn. And then everyone's like, wait, what did you throw in? What did you throw in? Wait, what did the navigator choose? The captain was like, well, I had two blue cards. I had sailor cards. I had to throw in a sailor card, so it couldn't have been me. And then the other person's like, well, I had two blue cards, so it couldn't have been me. I think you're lying because that we moved towards the pirates, so it was a red card. So there's no possible way that we all threw in blue cards because there was a red card chosen by the navigator. Yeah, so then you end up with this argument back and forth, and like people trying to deduce like what did people choose, well, who's telling the truth, what actually happened during that round, and then maybe on the next round no one trusts the captain anymore, so if people commit their mutiny guns, and it's like, nope, we mutiny, you're done, captain, we're choosing a new one, we're moving on. So I find, and then there's some cool things that happen. You can cut out someone's tongue where they can no longer talk, they can just like point and gesture during the game. There's one where you can do cabin searches, and one player can basically figure out information about another player. Just a phenomenal set of systems, a very smooth social deduction game. Like, this is my preferred style of social deduction. I'm not crazy about like Blood on the Clock Tower, even though I played that a few times. And yeah, a lot of the other ones, I don't know, this one just stands out for me. My last play of it was phenomenal. I was the cult leader, and I am terrible at lying. I am just absolutely atrocious at it, but I managed to bring someone into my side. I converted someone that I was like, ooh, you're good at social deduction, so you're going to be on my team now. And then he started to spread this misdirection. He got this one guy that was trying to solve the puzzle to go in the complete wrong direction, and I was having a great time with it. And then I managed to convert that guy as well, and then I managed to get myself thrown overboard and sacrificed to the Kraken, and the cult won the game. So just a phenomenal experience with Feed the Kraken. I highly recommend it if you're into social deduction. If you're not into social deduction, this one could be the one. Now, I will say this has been a con game for me. I have a friend that owns it, and I've only played it twice, and it's been at the local board game convention both times. And this is one I want to play more. Okay, that is going to do it for 54. We are going to be moving on to another small box, my last small box on the table here, and that is Bohnanza. Oh man, this is a much older game, Uwe Rosenberg, and this is another little phenomenal card game. So in Bohnanza, you're basically trying to plant these beans to your fields. Depending on player count, you're gonna have like 2 or 3 fields, I think. Yeah. So basically it's a little bit of a set collection, but the crux of the game is the fact that you're gonna have this hand of cards that you are not allowed to reorder. And on your turn, basically you can plant the card furthest to the right, and then optionally you can plant the second one as well. We'll talk about why that is in a second here. And then you're gonna reveal I think a card or 2 cards from the market or something. Basically reveal these cards, and then those cards are going to go up for auction. Basically now everyone can start trading with you. They can be like, oh, I want that cocoa bean. I'll give you 2 stink beans for that 1 cocoa bean. Or someone else is like, oh, I'll give you 3 stink beans for that 1 cocoa bean. They really need it or something. Basically when trading, you trade from any position in your hand. So maybe this is a way to kind of get rid of cards, because this is hand management. So it's like, well, if I can get rid of these cards so I can plant this other card, then that's going to make my situation much better. Because the idea of this game is that set collection, and basically the more of the same bean that you have down, the more valuable that is going to be. Basically when you harvest the bean, you're going to keep a certain number of scoring points and then throw the other ones back into the discard pile. So you are trying to kind of manage your hand to kind of clear out some of those bean cards so you can kind of get to that bean card that you really want to plant. And then you're also trying to trade for those ones that you already have planted, so you can kind of build up those stacks, make them more valuable over the course of the game. Because one of the issues is that if you ever have to plant a bean that is not already in your field, and your fields are full, you have to harvest one of the fields to plant that new bean. So that's where you're kind of managing those trades and trying to make sure that you're maximizing the value of these beans. And there's different beans out there that have different values. Like the red bean's the most valuable one. So if someone can get like 3 of those red beans, they get it's super easy to score points with those beans. But yeah, this is just a fun time. This is another negotiation game, but much lighter, just an easy one to play, easy one to table. I have the, what is this, 25th anniversary edition, and I think it plays up to like 7 players, and I would say it gets chaotic at 7, but I have a lot of fun at 7. I would say this one plays best probably at that 4+ player count, and it's another just great little card game that I love playing. Okay, so that does it for 53 Bohnanza. So let's move on to my number 52, and this is going to be Freelancers. And this is a Crossroads game, so it's a story-based game. Now, this one I just find it's another one that's just a joy to play for me. There's not a lot of decision making in Freelancers. I would say there are some decisions. You get to do some things. You get to do some things with upgrading your character, rolling some different dice. So it's a bit of it's like a guided D&D session, but very guided and very rules light, I would say. It's pretty easy to do things. Not a lot of I'm going to say there's not a lot of player agency in Freelancers, but I still have just a blast playing this one. I think it's a fun, just kind of hang out with friends game, you know. It lands in kind of that beer and pretzels category. If just having a night where we're playing this game and basically going through the story, and the stories are just they're funny. They're just interesting. I want to talk about one of the stories where the twist at the ending was really good. I think there's been the quality of the stories is a little variable. I think the first one's been my favorite so far, and then the second and third have been decent. I think I've done 3 at this point. And yeah, so a little bit variation on that, but it's just one of those games where it's like, oh, we're just gonna hang out. We're gonna sit at this table. We're gonna participate in this crazy world that the designers have created in Freelancers, and just see how this night goes, and basically just go along for the ride and watch some chaos happen and get some weird titles during the game, make some funny choices, and yeah, just have a fun night. So that's how I describe Freelancers. It's yeah, like I said, it doesn't really give you a lot of agency. So it's not something that I'm like trying to win during the night or whatever. It's just something I am participating in and enjoying the story. All right, so that's going to do it for my number 52. Now let's move on to 51, and this is going to be Scythe. Scythe has, this is another one. So I talked about Arc Nova falling from grace. Scythe has definitely fallen on my list quite a bit at 51. And that's because I played a decent amount of Scythe now. I played it a bunch solo back during the pandemic. That's actually one of the things that got me into hobby board gaming, was finally playing Scythe solo. I picked it up a long time ago, and then I had no one to play it with, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'm going to play it solo and try this out. I had a good time with it solo, but I don't feel like it brings out the real experience of Scythe. So playing it at multiplayer, much better experience. And this is where I played it a few times, multiplayer base game, but I also played the Rise of Fenris, and I had a blast playing Rise of Fenris. I played it at, I think, 4 players, and I really liked the changing up the goals during Rise of Fenris. I feel like that made the game a little more dynamic. There are some aspects of Rise of Fenris that I think I would work into the base game now, just every time. I feel like there are some interesting ideas in there that I change up the game enough where it would make it more interesting. But I haven't gotten Scythe back to the table in quite a long time. It's one that I still have in my collection because I still want to play it again. I haven't played with all the expansions, like the Windgamut expansion yet. I still haven't pulled that one out. But it is one that I don't go back to it as much. I feel like the combo of the Euro plus the area control, it's really nice, but there is some. It's one of those games that has easy potential for hurt feelings, right? So like someone, if they have some resource on their tiles and you're like, ooh, now you're easy pickings, you can kind of just go and take their tile, take those resources, and completely ruin the rest of the game for them. Like they can just be devastated for that game unless someone comes out and like those other 2 players get knocked back as well or something like that. So it's one of those games where, yeah, if someone's not managing their stuff correctly and someone else sees like an easy opening to be able to take those resources, but this is part of the game, so it's like what I enjoy about the game. It's constantly, it really drives home that kind of Cold War idea where players are trying to, you're really turtling a lot. You're trying to say like, oh, I'm getting my front lines up, getting ready for those attacks. No one ever wants to be the instigator in the attack. It's kind of like I'm holding back, but then if you have that opportunity for attack, that's one of those things that allows you to place out this star, because you have this race to achieve those victory conditions, and the first person to put out all their stars wins the game, and you can actually get 2 stars from combat. So generally, and then doing more combat than that doesn't really benefit you in any way other than maybe stealing resources and stuff. So really you're holding back a lot, and you really just want to get into the 1 or 2 combats to get those stars out. So I really like the idea of this game where you do have kind of that very Cold War feeling where everyone's kind of going out, they're slowly spreading out, and you're kind of judging other players and be like, oh, who can I attack? Who's going to attack me? So you're constantly on edge with that combat system. And then that combat system, there's a little bit of a bluffing mechanic, which I really enjoy. I like that because essentially when you commit combat power, you're actually going to lose that combat power, which can be devastating because that can allow someone to, you can be open to attack because maybe you have like a bunch of power, you have like 7 or whatever, but you have to commit a bunch in attack and you're down to like 1, and other players like, ooh, you only have 1 combat power, so you can actually commit a lot of forces to this combat, so I'm gonna go in and now take your stuff. So yeah, it's just this game that I think it has a really cool blending of mechanics with that area control, with the resources being on the map, so it's a danger to kind of leave those resources exposed and to kind of driving in that Cold War feeling. Then also the exploration tokens. So if you get your leader out there and you hit these certain spots with these exploration tokens, you get to draw from this explorer deck. And this is one of my favorite things in any game like ever. I love this explorer deck because you basically get to look at this. It has this picture on there, which kind of is very thematic. I like to describe the picture during the game because then you read off these choices that you have. And generally it's like you get one choice that kind of, it's like a light benefit. You get a second choice that's like a little bit of a cost but a decent benefit, and then you get this third choice that's like not really any cost. Well, it usually has like a popularity cost, but it gives you like a huge benefit, but you're also doing something like super negative, like it's like, oh, unless these villagers as basically forced labor and help out your production of your mechs, and it's generally really bad. So generally when that happens, it's like, ooh, you're being the immoral person during this game. So yeah, okay. But it is a popularity contest at the end. You're going to score a number of points based on your popularity at the end of the game. Yeah, so this is just, and generally Tracks, I'm not a huge fan of, but Tracks and Scythe, they did just a phenomenal job on it because like wherever you get on that popularity track, it's a multiplier for all your other things that you score on. So you're going to score based on like the area control, the number of areas you can control is a huge part of it. And yeah, it's a really nice blending of mechanics, but it does still land in that category of games that can definitely have hurt feelings. It is a race to the end, and I feel like playing Scythe at a high level is not something I'm ever going to be interested in. Like getting down to being like, oh, I can win the game in 17 turns or whatever. That's, if I ever get to that point, I'm probably no longer going to be playing Scythe. Okay, so that is going to do it for my number 51, and that means that is the end of this video, and I think I got through this one a little bit faster than usual, so, oh man, that means editing time might be a little shorter, thank goodness. But yeah, so now next videos, we're going to be moving into my top 50, so that's pretty exciting. That's going to do it for today, though, so thank you for watching, thank you for spending your time with me, and I will talk to you next time.